Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode here on the podcast Talking Female Health with Amy and Lisa, with my lovely co-host, Amy Connor.
Hi.
And me, Lisa Yara, both female health specialists or just female health coaches, because we have a thing about this term specialist, because we believe you are like the expert on your own body, and we are
Absolutely.
merely here to guide you through how that can happen, how you can make that happen in your own life. And one of these topics that can have a bad rep is rest. We talked about this 2 weeks ago on the episode already with meditation, that meditation can be a form of rest. Yet there is a whole thing about what does rest actually mean or not mean, because we can also think we are resting and we're actually not resting. We give you a few examples also of ourselves and what that can look like, but also debunking the myth around rest being lazy and unproductive, while in fact it's the engine that keeps everything going. An engine. Yeah, rest is an engine. Because when you look at nature, without winter and without rest, nature wouldn't be able to recharge her batteries year after year after year. And she has been around for a while and still is. And that's only possible because she does take rest seriously. So let's do the same. Yeah, let's dive into the topic, Amy. What's the first thing you want to share when it comes to rest?
Oh, this is such a big topic, and I'm really excited to be talking about it because it is so important, and especially when we know the negative impact that stress has on all our lives, like everybody. To me, if you can get the art of rest nailed, then that is one exquisite piece, like tool piece, uh, weapon you have in your toolkit. I got my words out today. Yeah. So what I see a lot, and this is what I've been guilty of in the past, is what I call unproductive rest. So people believe that they are resting, but they're not actually giving their body and their nervous system the environment that it needs to rest. And I say this in practically every episode, so I know you're probably going to say it along with me. We live in a really overstimulating world, constant stimulation. And for me personally, the battle I have to stay away from my phone to get rest is one that I am very, very aware of. But I know that when I have notifications going off, I'm not able to rest fully and be present for myself and to relax. And what I see a lot of the time and hear, and like I say, I've been guilty of this as well, so I'm not judging anyone, is feeling like rest is a bad thing, that if you take time out of your day to rest, that it's seen as unproductive, selfish, lazy, depending on the environment that you're in. I know that when I was in an employed environment, it was very much the norm for people to just work through their lunch breaks because they were too busy. Like if somebody actually actively removed themselves from the workspace and went and took their lunch break, it was very, very rare. And I actually applaud those people now. I'm like, yes, they know the truth. But we have this expectation that we are to keep going all of the time. And then I know I'm generalizing here. We get home at the end of a busy day, and how do we choose to relax? We plug ourselves in to another device. We can watch TV, we can play computer games, and a lot of the time, the content that we're consuming on these devices has our nervous system twitching because, the content is emotionally upsetting or physically violent, or, there's very few things that you can watch now where it isn't all about the shock factor and the violence factor. Um, my husband and I go to the cinema quite a lot, and when the trailers come on for the other films, we're like, we're not watching that, we're not watching that. And the last time we went, I was like, you can't watch a film now. It's very rare to find a film that isn't about shooting and killing and like these violent things. And it wasn't until not that long ago that I made the connection between when I'm watching these TV programs and then I go and take myself off to bed and I'm not able to sleep. It's because my nervous system is still in what I've just consumed. Like it's still like adapting to the situation. And I'm a very sensitive person, so I feel these things a lot. So I was under the illusion that I was resting and having a nice relaxing experience with my husband, like watching a film, watching TV or whatever, when actually my nervous system was having the complete opposite effect of that. And the reality is that it's so easy for us to do this on a subconscious level. If you are listening to the radio, for example, and the news comes on, there isn't anything positive being shared on the news. That if you're someone who watches the news a lot, the things that we bring into our homes and that we're listening to and consuming have an impact on our nervous system. And if we tell ourselves that we're doing these things to relax and we don't have that awareness of how they're impacting our nervous system, then we're not relaxing.
There is one thing I would like to jump in with, though, because a lot of clients and friends and people in my circles who are also often highly sensitive people, they are already like blocking out the news because of all the negativity. Yeah. Like a lot of people are already doing that.
Yeah.
And still we can get our nervous system or keep the nervous system activated, I guess, and not get into this true restful state, fully believing that we're doing something good. For example, I like coming home would grab a podcast because, hey, that's something like something good for my insight, for my personal development, for whatever, like or watching a documentary or something. The thing is that it still gives you input. And your system, including your brain, does not have the space to digest the day and everything that has already happened before concentrating on the next thing and opening up to the next thing. It's almost like you're stuffing even more into it. And then it can be even harder to digest the whole piece when you go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And like, I have that so often that like I want to also spend my time like productively, and then I think, okay, then I could at least like listen to a podcast. But I know from the visceral reaction in my body that it's too much. And I need to take a pause, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, or to talk something through with my partner before stepping into the next thing.
Yeah. And that's such an important point because, I'm just laughing internally here thinking, how many people listening to this podcast about rest are sat still or like in a restful state when they're doing it? Because I'm guilty of this. I will listen to my podcasts whilst I am moving and out and about and, constantly trying to consume and keep busy. And as I said in the previous podcast, it's only been very recently when I've allowed myself the space and the time to relax. For me, it's about connecting with my body and checking in, seeing how things are, like doing what I need to do in that moment to support myself. But it's so hard, even now, for me to think, yeah, but in 20 minutes, I could clean the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
I could cook tea, or I could do like, there's all these other really productive things that I could do instead of resting and stepping into my space where I need to be. So
Or these
it's,
other societally
yes,
conditioned productive things.
yeah. And, I can remember going, people would like get me massages and stuff as treats for birthdays and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And even while I'm lying having a massage, I'd be thinking, what do I need to do after this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
long have I got left on my parking? What's it like? Oh, like
Guilty.
I just like couldn't get into it and couldn't fully
Mm.
give myself permission. And I think it is such a like a heavy loaded topic because rest is really challenging for all of us.
Mm.
And, for a lot of us that have different lifestyle needs to mine, like, I don't have young children that need my care. I don't have elderly parents that need my care. I have very much myself to look after. So I'm in a privileged condition, situation in that sense. Yeah, I still struggle with the rest and the permission to rest.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
The other
but
thing that I wanted to mention is when you said that like there is this narrative that rest is lazy and unproductive. To a degree, yes, that's part of the problem. The other part is that we can feel, and I speak from experience, like if I rest, the whole world is going to crumble.
yes,
I
yeah,
need to uphold this. I need to maintain this pace in order to like maintain stability, because otherwise everything is going to pieces. And I dare say being a business owner has made this even worse,
hmm
because sometimes my brain tries to convince me that if I take a pause now, the whole business is going to crumble.
yes,
Like no
oh,
one is ever going to hire me again and whatever. So
yeah,
the narratives that our brains tell us to try and convince us that we should not be resting. Because the other thing is this: once you start resting and becoming still, you're no longer in this active
hmm
motion doing mode. That's when everything that has been pushed down by your nervous system because you didn't have the space to process it, everything will come up,
yeah,
including intense and difficult and uncomfortable emotions. And I believe
hmm
that's the other part why we like to
yes,
flee from resting, because before we can get to this actual state of rest, there is some processing that might need to happen.
hmm
And
yeah,
that can be uncomfortable down to physically painful.
absolutely, yes, it can, yeah, and I
And
find
I
it,
say that just to be aware of it, right? It's not
yeah,
like
no, I
that's a
think
bad thing.
that's a really valid and important point that almost in that sense, not resting is keeping you safe from
Mhm.
the potential um, clarity that you're going to have to face if you do rest. Um, and I find it so interesting how, going back to childhood, we were encouraged to rest. You're encouraged to have a nap. You get told, oh, you're tired, you need to rest, go and lie down and have a sleep or whatever it is. And then there becomes this magical transition that happens when the children go to school. And
Mhm.
I have this conversation with parents all the time over the summer holidays before their child's about to start school. I need
Mhm.
to stop them napping. They're going to school in September. They need to stop napping. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like then we get into this model of that's when it starts. You have to
Yeah.
be present. You have to be paying attention. You have to be learning. You have to be constantly being productive because if you're not of value to society. And
And that's the problem,
yeah,
exactly. Like, who is benefiting from us not resting?
yeah,
Usually the people in power.
yeah, Absolutely.
Because they don't have to work so hard because we do that for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if it makes us, if we do get ill with it, then
then it's our fault.
Yes.
And then we are asked to please get the support we need in order to recover so that we can get back to work.
Yeah, and we are made to feel like we're the burden, and we're the one that needs to get better. And yeah, it's just so, I'm thinking of the women that I know in my life who just struggle so much with stopping because they just can't do that. And I get mocked by some of the people in my family because I say that in the afternoon I take like half an hour out. Sometimes I'll have a sleep, sometimes I'll just sit and gaze out the window and like drink my tea, or I'll listen to an audiobook, or I'll do something, whatever I feel called to in that half an hour. And sometimes like I can sleep for like 5 minutes and I feel like a completely different person. I feel so refreshed, so renewed just for taking that time out. And sometimes if I'm out for the day with family and I'm like, oh, I'm really feeling that I haven't had my little rest, they all mock me. And it's like, oh yeah, I just got nothing better to do. Da, da, da. And it's like, no, I am so much more productive when I take that time out to honor rest.
And the thing is, you and yourself are stable enough to keep that.
Yeah.
But when everyone around you is telling or like joking about you, and like it's not a nice feeling when others make their jokes on your behalf. So I do understand if you give in to what other people say.
And it is just that piece of feeling the guilt around the rest. And that's a heavy piece as well, like the guilt and the shame about taking rest for yourself,
about needing rest in the first place, because that means like we are weak and again unproductive, not a good member of society, not contributing, not playing our part in this whole like framework.
Yeah, like
that is indeed going to crumble if we stop playing
the hamster wheel of just constantly keeping going. Yeah. And so I feel like the world just needs an invitation to rest, and just give yourself that permission. And I know it's a really hard thing to step into if it's something that's been conditioned into you, like it was for me. I never saw my mum rest. My mum has 3 children, she worked full time. I never saw her rest. Like she would sit down at the end of the day, but I never saw her during the day just thinking, I'm going to just take 5 minutes. Like I never saw that mirrored or modeled. And it's really hard to put that in place if you haven't had that shown to you, because it's so alien.
Yeah, and I want to just say that like it's not just you in this lifetime. Like we carry this through our line, our ancestors. Like I don't know if I mentioned it here on the podcast, but do you know where the 40-hour work week comes from? It has been set up during the Industrial Revolution because that was the amount of hours per week and per day that a human could work without the risk of the human becoming sick from the work. If they did more than that, they wouldn't be much more productive, but the risk of them being injured would increase.
Yeah.
That's how they developed the 40-hour work week, because it's the maximum of like productivity versus no injury.
Gosh.
And to just imagine, this is where we're coming from, but who talks about this?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I do understand also myself, as are you, that it's not easy to find these pauses.
Mm.
And I think we need to start very, very small and encourage ourselves every small step that we take. I had a podcast interview the other day, and my guest shared that, can you take a pause in between transitions? Like, you've written an email
Mm-hmm.
to a client, to a colleague, to whatever. Can you then like close the computer and take a breath before you do the next thing?
Yeah.
And that's literally all it takes in the beginning. Just between two tasks, take one conscious, intentional breath
Yeah.
before moving into the next one. This can really make all the difference.
Yeah.
And again, from the previous episode, it's a practice. It's not supposed to work right from the start,
No.
and it's not supposed to feel comfortable right from the start. That it's new for your nervous system. You need to train your nervous system that it's safe to rest.
Yeah.
And that's really a thing. Oh, that's something else that came to me when you were talking about the film, and why like watching films or listening to podcasts is still activating your nervous systems, because your brain cannot differentiate if something, especially in a film, if it's happening right now to you, if
Yeah.
it's fictional or not. If it's happening to someone else, your brain doesn't differentiate. It believes it is in danger. It is doing the shooting, or it is being shot, or it
Yes.
is being kidnapped, or whatever the action thrillers are doing there.
Yeah. And that's not a nice place to be, like with your nervous system. And I think just having the awareness of that
Yeah.
is powerful. Like for anybody who's listening, who I think the vast majority of listeners will be very conscious about what they're consuming.
Well, I do like some action thriller.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
not I'm
too
not saying it's a
often.
bad thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
Like,
I need to know that, hey, this is activating to my nervous system, so I will not watch it right before going to bed. Or if I do
exactly.
go to bed, I don't expect myself to fall asleep
Yeah.
immediately. And I will
Yeah.
take half an hour with my husband to just discuss everything that has gone on in that film, to
Yeah.
really make sure I digest this.
Absolutely. And just having that awareness, like, and for me, it's, I'm very, very picky about what I watch now. So my husband likes all the action stuff, and he can watch that,
Hmm.
that's fine, but I don't want to watch it. But there'll be times when I'll start watching something, we'll be starting watching something together, and I can just feel it. I don't like this.
Hmm.
And sometimes it doesn't have to be like a violent thing or a action thing. It's just like, no, this isn't good. Like, I don't, and just knowing that that's okay. And I can stop. I don't have to commit to the full series or the full film or whatever it is. Like, I don't have to
Yeah.
sit through it and just feel. And then there's other things that we've watched that we've really enjoyed, and they are maybe that little bit more gritty. So we make the decision that we're going to watch them earlier in the day.
Hmm.
And we'll schedule our days differently and be like, oh, let's watch an episode together before you go to work, and then
Mm-hmm.
we can like do something different on the night or whatever that is. So it's about having that awareness and looking to change behaviors in that way of just, I always talk about giving yourself permission, because before I would have thought, I'm 3 episodes into this now, so there's only 2 left. I need to finish this and see what
Mm-hmm.
happens. Whereas like
Mm-hmm.
now I'm just like, no, body says no. Like I don't need to do it. And there's other times where, there's a documentary that I want to watch, which I know is going to be upsetting. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know it's going to activate me. So I will check in when that's right for me and my body. And I will think, am I going to be okay watching this? I'll start watching it. Am I feeling okay? Or I'll give myself space afterwards to
Mm-hmm.
get out in nature or whatever it is that needs to happen. And I think that's another point that I'd like to raise as well, is about because we are a health podcast, if anybody listening to this is struggling with their health, one of the really good things that I started to do, and it may help you, you may already be doing it, is when I had an appointment, whether that would be with a doctor, a medical profession, or my reflexologist, or my osteopath, whatever it was, I would block time out afterwards to not necessarily rest, but do what I needed to do in that moment. Whereas before, I would think, okay, so I'll have the appointment at this time, and then I can be back at work for this time and just carry on with my day and everything will be absolutely fine. Whereas now, I know if I have an appointment, I either don't book clients in, so I don't have to show up for anybody afterwards, and give myself space. So if I feel like I can come back to work and be productive, absolutely fine. If I feel like I need to go for a walk on the beach, or I need to just sit on the sofa and hug my dog, or whatever it is that I need to do, that's okay. And giving myself that gift was probably like the start of me realizing that I'm worthy of getting better. Because I was just very much on the productive hamster wheel of, okay, I'll pop off, I'll have this appointment, and then I'll jump back on and carry on going until the next thing. You know, it's okay for you to take the time that you need to bring yourself to where you need to be. Yeah.
That's why I, for example, when I schedule my client session, I always tell them, whenever we have a session, leave yourself half an hour afterwards where you don't have another appointment. Because I can guarantee you there is something that's going to come up, and you might want to just, usually it's something with a lot of relief and relaxation in the end. But even for that, to anchor that in, to draw a picture of what has come through, to journal a bit about what has come through, or to dance it out, or whatever it is they need to do to anchor in this new insight and whatever has come through in the session. So it doesn't have to mean like something major exploded and now you need to calm and soothe your nervous system again. No, it can simply mean digesting the experience, the positive experience that you had, and really giving it credit, maybe even just celebrating what has just now happened for you. I want to briefly touch on the 7 types of rest, just because they work so well with our topic today, because like rest does not, like we have talked about what restful rest does not look like. But what does restful rest or true rest actually look like? And it's not like there is one size fits all or one situation. It can depend on the situation, what you enjoy or need. And it can, so rest can appear in different layers or levels. There is physical rest. Sleep can be, or napping, as you have also mentioned, can be an amazing kind of rest, but it can also be an active physical rest, like yoga or a massage, receiving a massage, or simply stretching your body, can be a physical form of recharging the batteries. Then there is creative rest. So grabbing something that's creative expression, whether that for you means actually painting, which is usually the first thing that comes to mind, or whether that's cooking a meal and allowing your inspiration to come through, that is also a creative endeavor. And the important thing, I believe, here is that it's creativity that does not serve a specific purpose. Like the goal is not to finish a masterpiece. Not even to finish the piece. It's just allowing the creativity that wants to come through. Or I don't know, planting flowers can also be a very creative process. Then we've got sensory rest. So on the one hand, it's of course reducing stimulation, as we have already talked a lot about, but also like this tactile, like as you said, petting your pet can be immensely satisfying and soothing for the nervous system and its sensory. Then we've got social rest. And here it's important to know whether you're more of an introvert who receives energy by being on their own, or more of an extrovert who receives energy by being with other people. And sometimes it can be that like both of them are true in different situations, but be mindful and check in. Do I now need other people or do I need time on my own? Then we've got emotional rest. And this is possibly the hardest to learn. This, as I've shared, when you stop and you pause, all these emotions may come up. And increasing your capacity to be with these emotions and to just hold them and see them and witness them and then allow them to flow through. It's not a quick thing to learn, that I'm aware, but that's a form of emotional rest. Looking at, okay, this film has brought up these emotions, so what's a safe way for me and others to release them now? And then we've got spiritual rest. So in a sense, go back to the episode 2 weeks ago around meditation, this tapping into something that is bigger than you, so that you don't feel alone and like you have to hold it all. So that you know that when you pause, the world is not going to break down. And the last is mental rest. So anything from journaling and getting the thoughts out on paper, or doing EFT tapping. There are like tapping points that you can tap and speak the beliefs that you currently hold and that you want to release, and the new beliefs that you would like to take on, for example. But anything to help you, again, also meditation, to help you step back and make an internal step back, not identify with the thoughts that are flowing through your head, but looking at, oh, this is happening for me. I'm witnessing what is happening. And so all of these classify as rest. The work is, make sure to mention her, Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. It's her body of work, The 7 Types of Rest. So if you want to learn more about that,
I love that.
But that's just because like we all often have the perception, okay, rest is sleeping or just sitting on the couch.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about my weekend actually, because I had my nephew to myself for the day, and we went out, the two of us, all day, and it was so like I just felt so refreshed afterwards, because it was a change of routine. It was being in the presence of a child and all of their imagination and curiosity, and it was really, really restful. So I love those different 7 types. That's so beautiful and so comprehensive. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa.
Couldn't make an episode without that when it's about rest.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any closing words that you want to bring forward around this whole topic of resting and how rest is productive?
Yeah, I feel that we've talked a lot in this episode about so much, and it is such a huge topic. So I would love to know what your relationship with rest is now. And
you as the listener, I guess.
Yes, sorry, you as the listener. What your relationship with rest is now, and how, if at all, you would like that to change. Because I just love hearing other people's ideas, what makes them tick. Like, if you have something that you do, like Lisa's just gone through that big list, if there's something that you do that takes you to that restful space, I would love to hear it. You know, if you are somebody who just goes and draws and paints, or, you know, I would just be so excited to hear what rest looks like for you, or what recent experience of rest you've had. Like I just shared, I just shared about my time with my nephew and how I can now reflect back on how restful that was. Yeah, just really curious to hear the listeners' experiences of rest, because
Mm.
I'm just so interested in what supports other people. Yeah.
I would also be interested in your examples, like you as the listener, your examples of where you noticed that you did something and it activated you, although you thought it was rest. Like all these examples of, oh, I noticed or I realized with everything we've talked about today, like,
Yeah.
I now realize that when I'm in this situation, this is actually happening for me. And I now at least have an awareness, because it's only with awareness that you can create any change or initiate any change.
Yeah.
But to first of all, like, so if you've got any new awarenesses of situations where you can now do it differently if you wish, then I would love to know those as well.
Yeah. That's
Plus the ideas.
That's a great question, Lisa. I love that one. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then we shall be back in due time with another episode. And for
Yeah.
now, we wish you a lovely day and
Yeah.
much love.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.